On today's episode of the CLS Experience, we have a very special treat. She's a dynamic world-class para division runner who just conquered the iconic Boston Marathon. She's a courageous, resilient, and extraordinary human being who is a survivor of the 2013 Boston Marathon bombing. She was a competitive and driven ballroom dancer before losing her leg at the Boston bombing attack. Since then, she's been on a journey and has become a huge advocate to gain amputee rights, including a para division at the marathons and other physical endurance events. She's an international keynote speaker and is all about not playing small and stepping into your power to put a massive dent in the universe. Please welcome the gritty, inspiring, persistent, mentally bulletproof, and emotionally honest, abundant Adrianne Haslet. How you doing, Adrianne?
Oh, Craig, that makes me smile so big. That was such a wonderful intro. Thank you for that. I like the gritty part.
Yes.
It was pretty gritty.
I'm so glad that you liked it. I always get a kick out of the guest reactions. And like I like to always say, it's your story. You wrote it. I just said it.
Well, you wrote it beautifully. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's wonderful to be here.
Absolutely. And the funny part is you and I probably could have talked for an hour before we hit record. And we're like, hold up, let's save this juicy stuff for the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned the word gritty just there. Let's start right there. Let's just get right into it. I always say two of the most important components for success, in my personal opinion, are self-belief and grit. I imagine gritty is a big one for you too.
Yeah, it really is. You've got to be gritty. You've got to want to do the work on the hard days and do the really hard, challenging things. And to me, being gritty means going after it and digging deep when it really, really matters and will make a big difference.
Yeah.
Whether that's on an ordinary training day or a challenging mental day that you have doing something else, I think that requires a deep level of grit.
Yeah, 100%. And when you choose to be gritty, right, because it is a choice, that's how you build resilience, right? By saying yes to the uncomfortable and tough things.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what builds resilience. You know, it's resilience to me is really proving to yourself that you can go on when you don't think you can. So like making the decision to get out of bed again, or making the decision to put on your kicks and go for a run again, even on the hard day. Like that's resilience to me, is making that decision and that choice to keep going again and again. And that's awesome to me. You know, that's resilience. And it takes, you know, sometimes resilience is small and tiny little movements too. It takes a lot of grit.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Bang. That's where we drop the mic, but we're just getting warmed up.
Yes.
I know the audience, they love to get a little feel for the background, and we'll jump around a little bit. And it's ironic because I always start off with a little bit of an icebreaker. So I'm going to ask you this, but I have a feeling you might have just answered it, but we're about to find out. Adrianne, what is your superpower?
Ooh, what is my superpower? I think my superpower is resilience. I mean, we're just talking about that, right? But being able to pick myself back up and not waiting for someone else to pick me up along the way, and doing that. I certainly have help, and I don't want to dismiss that. But there have been a lot of times in my life where I haven't had that help and I've had to do it on my own. And so I think my superpower is resilience.
Yeah, beautifully said. I'm curious to hear your answer for this one. I love to get a feel for all the greats and the very successful people. What are some non-negotiables for you?
Ooh, I probably have more non-negotiables than not. I think, you know, there was a long period of time in my life where I made some choices that I felt like I should have stood up for myself, or I should have said no when I said yes. And then I just, you know, there's a saying by Elizabeth Gilbert that says, I've never seen any change happen without someone getting sick of their own bullshit.
Oof.
So I finally was like, okay, well, I don't like the way this is going for me. So I'm going to start saying no. And then that felt really good. And now I think to answer your question, I think I've overcorrected a little. Like maybe I could be a little easier, like to not put my foot down. But my non-negotiables, it's a long list. I think I'll name like top 5 or so. I don't ever stay, and this is a Glennon Doyle quote, but I live by it. I don't stay ever in a conversation, a room, or a relationship or a friendship where I have to put myself second or last. And where I'm like, I'm misquoting Glennon Doyle, which is like a cardinal sin, but it's basically saying like, I don't want to stay somewhere where I'm not welcome, or I'm having to sacrifice or give up who I am. And so that's a non-negotiable for me. It doesn't mean that things need to be going my way at all. It just means that I don't want to have to sacrifice who I am for the sake of someone else being comfortable.
Oh, yeah.
And non-negotiable for me, because we were just in the month of April, is making plans for the 15th, which is the anniversary of the bombing. I never make plans that day. If I do, it's always in all of my people, my close friends who I call my lockbox. They all know this. Yeah. It's like, I can tell them information. They can tell me information. It's just in a lockbox. Like, it's just a safe space. And they're also lockbox because I'm never letting them go. And they may not know that I also refer to it like as in like I'm deeply attached. But I never make plans on the 15th. If I do, then my people know that it's tentative. So that's a non-negotiable for me. I don't put myself in places where I need to sacrifice my values and my core beliefs at all for anything. And I'm lucky that I get to manage my own career and make choices of interviews and conversations and podcasts and speeches and things that I want to do. And we can get into all that, but I'm lucky that I don't have a boss that's like trying to tell me you have to do that, or too bad, or, whatever. Like, I'm lucky that I can be really picky.
Same.
Yeah, for sure. So that, I had to work hard for that. But yeah, I don't ever, I trust my gut and my spidey senses more now than I ever have. Good. I think that also comes with age.
Yeah.
And a few really bad experiences. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. First of all, I love all this gripping stuff. And for the audience, like, run that back, grab a pen and a journal. This is really deep stuff. Congratulations on the Boston Marathon, which is awesome.
Thank you.
Hell yeah.
Thank you.
Unbelievable accomplishment for so many reasons. I've been tracking your journey. I know just going into this thing, the number one goal for you, correct me if I'm wrong, was just to get to the start line healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, so I ran the race with my mentor, good friend and coach and teammate, Shalane Flanagan. She's incredible and amazing. And she and I set our goals, and we were talking about, what's our dream scenario for the day, and what, is A goal, B goal, C goal. And yes, you're right. Our A goal was to get to the finish line, or I'm sorry. Well, yes, to get to the finish line, but to get to the start line healthy.
That's probably your D goal, right? Is to get to the
that's D goal, right? Yep. Exactly. That's a good one. And, part of that is because, a lot of people concentrate on that finish line, and it's a real privilege to be able to get to the start line healthy.
Yes,
and we overlook what it takes to get to that start line. And as someone who has tried to get to that start line so many times, and not been able to do it, or did it, and I did not finish in 2018. And it is tough. Anything can happen on race day, anything.
You're not kidding.
And so, I don't want to jinx anything or anyone, but like, you could roll an ankle as you're walking to the bus. Like, anything can happen. So to get to that start line healthy is just a really good goal to have. And so I was really happy that was our A goal, and our B goal was to have the most fun and to win the award for most fun, which we did. It's not official, but we decided it was, and we made it official. And then our C goal was to win the damn thing. And that eventually changed to get to a podium because my competitors came out fierce. And that's great. But yeah, that was the A goal. I think that was a really fun A goal, and it made me concentrate more on my training and what I was doing with my body, and how I was treating my sleep, and how I was treating my nutrition and my mental health and everything else, just to get to that start line healthy. It made me think less about the 26.2 I had ahead of me, and more about giving my training my all.
Understood. Yeah. And for the audience that may not be super familiar with running marathons, I can tell you from experience, I just recently got into it a few years back, and now I'm obsessed with them. When I first understood the concept of having A, B, C, and D goals. I was like, but why would you want to have a B goal that just takes away from plan A?
Yeah, I thought the same thing. Yeah.
Yes, I knew there was going to be a lot of synergy with our personality types. But for the audience, like, why is that significant? Because as Adrian was attesting to, marathons are very unpredictable. It's a very long distance. You never know what's going to happen. So if you're not going to hit like a really good PR or specific goal, instead of being dejected or like checked out, there's always other milestones that you can still hit over the course of that day and race, and it keeps you engaged the whole time. Would you say that's accurate?
Absolutely. That's a beautiful way to say it. And, I think one of the other things that's such a factor in our race is you can have like a beautiful lead up and wonderful training, and then it can like be a monsoon. Like I had as I mentioned briefly, in 2018 in the Boston Marathon, it was what the Boston Athletic Association referred to as a frozen car wash. It was like Boston Logan Airport was literally closed down. They would not take off planes. Like it was so bad. And it was freezing rain. It was off raining and 1 minute, and then it would be freezing rain the next. And so many people DNF'd. And so, yeah, you can have a wonderful training block. And then we'd like to think that weather isn't a factor. You like to think, oh, I'm stronger than that. There's a saying in running that says there is no such thing as bad weather, just unprepared athlete. And then for those of us that ran 2018, we believe that there is such a thing as bad weather. Like it was brutal. So, or you could have a really, really hot day where your hydration is just a very different plan than what you were planning on. And so, yeah, anything can happen out there. It's like life, right?
That's it. Yeah, that was really cool the way you just articulated that. No such thing is bad weather, just an undertrained or underprepared athlete. So true.
Yeah.
But obviously there's, once in a lifetime situation,
Right.
or conditions, if you will.
Yeah.
I know the year that you're referring to.
Brutal.
And for the audience listening, guys, in case you're not familiar with Adrianne, my suggestion, instead of doing a whole background story, is go check out her content, go see what she has going on. She's awesome. She's inspirational. She's making a difference. I think what will be most valuable today is just an unbelievable conversation. But of course, we want to give a little context and so forth. Correct me if I'm wrong, but up until the Boston bombing years back, you were never really a runner in the past. Obviously, competitive ballroom dancer, but not a runner per se. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I would never be seen sweating in public in flats, ever, like ever. No way. I was raised in my parents' independent bookstore, right outside of Seattle. Well, it was in Seattle, Washington. My house was right outside of Seattle, and I was introduced to Ginger Rogers at a very, not the person, but the movies, at a very young age. And I was hook, line, and sinker, and wanted to be in dresses all the time and wanted to have my makeup done and be Ginger Rogers one day. And I held on to that dream for a long time. And I was able to audition after high school. And I eventually went pro as a professional ballroom dancer. So I was competing and traveling all over the world and the US as a professional ballroom dancer until losing my leg in 2013. And but no, I used to forge notes in high school to get out of running the obligatory mile because I was like, why on earth would you do that? Like, I have to change my clothes, then I have to put on my clothes again when I'm all sweaty. Like everybody would see me sweat. Like I would never run. And even as a ballroom dancer, we were obligated to wear heels all the time because it trained our feet to be in high heels.
Yeah.
So like I didn't even, when I went into PT, physical therapy, after losing my leg, I had to send someone out to go buy a sneaker for me because I owned none, like not even the cute little sneakers that some girls wear. Like I owned none. Not even like little ballet flats.
I've heard you even say when you went food shopping, you had to wear heels.
Yeah. It's so bizarre to me, but no, I would never be seen running, ever.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it. I thought, like when I came upon the Boston Marathon that day in 2013, I was taking a day off and I had just won third in the world. And I saw this commotion over on the next street over, and I said, what is this? I didn't know what the Boston Marathon was. I'd moved to Boston, but I had spent so much time in a dance studio. Like when you're a professional dancer, you aren't going out on a Friday night. Like every minute, it's like any pro athlete. A lot of people, we like to say as dancers, like a lot of people don't think we're pro athletes, but we think it's really cute. Brady has an off season. Like that's cute for you. I said that in a speech once and he was there and rolled his eyes at me, but it's really cute. Like someone else knows all of his moves and he has backup in an off season. And like, we are the only ones who know our choreography. So we just like take a cortisone shot and keep going. But yeah, so I asked them like, what is this race? Like, what are people doing? And they said, it's the Boston Marathon. And I said, how far is that? Because I didn't know anything. And they said 26.2 miles. And I was like, watching these people with these white faces, just like struggling and crying and like trying so hard. And I just looked at that person and I was like, that's a long way to go for a statement necklace and a free banana. Like, that's obscene. Like, why on earth would you do that? Like, who on earth would do that? And then,
hey man, and now we pay to do it.
yeah, exactly. And then not even, I think 2-3 minutes later, the bombs went off and I lost my leg immediately. But, and my love of running was born from that. But that was my intro to it. It was like, why on earth would you ever do that?
Yeah.
It just, I would never run.
Yeah, I heard you say, I don't want to talk about it too much because I want to talk about all the exciting stuff that you got going on now. But I listened in great detail to you talk about this in the past, and something that you said that was very interesting to me was that when it happened, you kind of knew right after the first explosion that, you know, maybe it was a terrorist attack or something of that nature, and you were pretty much conscious the whole time. Is that right?
Yeah, I did. So the first blast went off and I saw it was behind me, and I saw that was the one at the finish line. And I saw people running then in all directions and the ground shook. And I just knew that it was not like fanfare or like a press box, like an explosion from a speaker or whatever people thought it was. I just knew that it was like meant to cause damage. I don't know what my spidey senses, how that picked up. But I plugged my ears and I put my face in the person I was with. And I yelled, terrorist attack, the next one's going to hit. And boom, it hit. I don't know what made me yell that.
Instinct.
It get me investigated by the FBI, which is fine. They're my friends now. But yeah, it was very scary. And then I was conscious the entire time. Yeah, I went down and I opened my eyes, and it was just, all I saw was gray. And I thought, I think this is it. Like, I don't think I'm actually alive. And I smelled that all too familiar smell that a lot of us know, where like if you get your hair stuck in a hair dryer, or like you have your curling iron on too long and it smells like burning hair. And I finally was able to move my arms, and I put out flame on my eyebrow, and I lost like 4 inches of hair that was on fire. And then the gray started to fade, and I realized that was smoke. And I looked down and my right thigh was open above my knee. I just had a gash, a pretty sizable gash, where they later found the label to the pressure cooker that was still inside my leg. And then and then I looked down at my left foot and it was completely gone. And I was awake through the whole thing, like up until I counted back from 10 in the hospital room, the surgical room. So yeah, it was horrific. I mean, I saw a lot on that sidewalk from other people that were injured or not, that didn't make it. And yeah, it was awful. I mean, there are no, like, I can say it was awful and scary and terrifying, but like, there are no words, right? Like there are no words that can really capture that moment. But, you know, I think I've been asked a lot, because I do public speaking for a living, and I've been asked a lot about, like, am I glad that I was conscious? Like, am I glad that I have those visuals and remember everything? Or is it super hard and haunting? And I didn't get nightmares. I went into therapy right away. And so I didn't get nightmares. And so I think that's good. But I think I didn't get nightmares because my subconscious wasn't trying to fill in the blanks. Like, I already knew what happened. And so I'm super grateful that I knew, because then I had all the blanks I needed to fill in. And I'm glad that nobody had to make the decision to take my leg. Like, my family didn't have to make the decision, or, you know, it was just gone. I didn't want it to happen, but like, if it's going to happen, I wouldn't want to have to make the decision myself.
Understood.
That wasn't something I thought I could live with.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for getting so deep and being
Yeah.
vulnerable. I know you're big into vulnerability, and as mine, I really appreciate it, or the audience will as well. This might be a little bit of a weird question, but because you were conscious the whole time, but obviously probably not, you know, everything was a little bit weird. Did you actually feel physical pain?
Yeah, it's interesting. So someone asked me about this the other day too,
Really?
in a physical therapy group, because the memories of pain can be just as damaging mentally, as the physical pain is. I'm learning a little bit about that. I just read The Body Keeps the Score, which is like game changer for anyone who's had trauma, or just life in general. And because it's hard sometimes. And so the memory of pain can sometimes just be super damaging, to you, and in a memory sense. And I remember just being so shocked that my body didn't feel anything at first. Like I visually saw it and I was like, oh snap, like that's something that's going to hurt really bad. But it didn't hurt. And then I was waiting for it to hurt. And I remember screaming, this is interesting. I don't know if I've ever said this just because I didn't really remember it publicly, but I was screaming for whiskey because they had like drug me into this restaurant bar thing. And I was like leaning up against a staircase. And I looked over and I was like, whiskey. Like, first of all, I don't drink whiskey, but like, I thought like, I'm going to go, like, I just want to get knocked out. I don't think I was trying to take my own life at all. It wasn't that kind of a moment. I just like, didn't want to, I knew the pain was coming and I didn't want to feel it. And I thought that more bombs were going to go off. And so I didn't think that there was anyone coming to save us right away, because I thought that there were a lot of, like, I didn't know how they would get there. That didn't end up being the case. I was rescued by 5 very hot firemen. I vividly remember that. But yeah, I don't remember the pain there, but I remember just howling, like deep, primal, save your life howling, like animalistic howling. Yeah. And then I felt all the pain after. I woke up from surgery, but then they put in a nerve blocker and then it was gone. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't have a ton of pain memories from this experience, which is bizarre.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, obviously, unfortunately, there's attacks and stuff like this that happens more often than we'd like to admit. But I remember exactly where I was when this happened, and I just remember being, the word shouldn't be captivated, but I was so invested in this situation and the whole story. And I remember just reading about it, and it infiltrated my soul and my heart, the whole thing. I'm not sure why. Kind of like the way, like, the Kobe Bryant a couple years ago passed. Like, everybody was just invested.
Everybody knows where they were when something impacts the country like that. It's such a devastating blow for everyone. Even if you were across the street or you were still at mile 10 or whatever it was, so many people from across the globe knew someone who was running. And so, it's Boston Marathon is such a global event. And so many families and kids and everything were there, that I hear lots of stories of people that were just captivated by the news for a very long time. Interestingly enough, I actually did not watch the news at all while I was in the hospital.
I know this about you.
Yeah. And I find it fascinating that I somehow, like, we were talking earlier about non-negotiables. Like, one of my non-negotiables is for someone to say the terrorist name in an interview. And obviously I know you're not going to do that. And I know a lot of people won't do that, but I always say it because, like, of course, the time when I don't say it, someone's going to say it. And I didn't want to know what happened. Like, I knew that my leg was gone, and that was enough information for me at the time. Like, my cup was full of too much information at that level. So if I were to intake anything else, I knew it would be too much for me. So I had them turn off the news in my room, made sure I didn't have a TV. They unhooked the TV. They unhooked the speakers above my room for music, because I didn't want to listen to music if I couldn't dance. And the hospitals have like a very faint background music. And then I put a note on my door saying that if you enter this room, you are not allowed to tell me what happened. And so and I went into every appointment, every hangout, every single thing I did for the first 3 months. I told everyone that would listen. I was like, I don't want to know. And so while everyone else was paying attention to this chase and this manhunt and Boston being closed, I had no clue that was going on. And for the first 3 months, I thought the bombs came from the sky. Like I truly did not know, even though I was literally bumping shoulders with the monster as I was walking down the street. He dropped the backpack at my feet. And I didn't, yeah, I had no idea. But I know a lot of people that were captivated by it. Someday I'll watch the news about it, but I still don't really know what happened.
Understood.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Again,
I think that would have been too much for me at the time,
100%. Yeah.
If I hear something now, it's not that bad, but like at the time it would have been overwhelming.
Of course. And everybody has a process, and you were, you were dealing with something obviously very personal, and you were just trying to get over that, and everything else that was going on. Again, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being so vulnerable and open about this. I know, because I'm a fan, and obviously I did the homework because I want to show this conversation the respect it deserves. I heard you say something that after you woke up for about a week, the strongest emotion that you felt was anger. And I think when something like this happens, a big part of the process, and maybe you could touch on this a little bit, is acceptance. And that's tough for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. And you're absolutely right. The anger was fierce. Later on, there's the phrase that I didn't learn till way too long after, that anger is just grief in disguise. But
I never heard that before.
Oh yeah. It was like, I sat with my anger long enough until she told me she was grief.
That's
or
deep.
he or whatever. Yeah, it's tough. Usually you're angry because you aren't getting a need met, which damn therapy. So sometimes there are things you just don't want to hear. You're like, I'd rather just be angry and throw pillows and punches and things at, like my pillows and all the stuff. Yeah, I took up boxing right after for that reason. And yeah, it's really hard. Anger is a tough emotion. And as someone who had no idea how to deal with anger, because I wasn't an angry kid, my parents didn't need to, they didn't need to show me examples of how to deal with my anger, because I wasn't an angry kid. And so I just was so overwhelmed by all of these feelings. And I was just so mad it was gone. Like, I was a professional ballroom dancer. I had just won third in the world. I had this, using air quotes right now for people on the podcast who can't see, perfect body, whatever that is, but 00 muscles everywhere, no problem standing in front of a group of men in a literal sequin bikini and heels, with them having numbers holding out to tell me if I'm a 10 or not. Like, that was my actual career. And so I was pissed. Like, my hair was half fried off. I was mad, and that is tough. And so, yeah, I was pretty raged. But yeah, you asked about acceptance as well. It's tough to accept your body when you've used it as your tool and your career, and now it's completely different. I also, I don't talk about this very much publicly, but I was also going through a divorce at the same exact time. Like, we tried to make it, we're almost at a divorce half an hour before the blast happened, and then decided to make it work, and then didn't. And so I was having to accept this massive career change, or career ending, and marriage ending, and losing my leg all at the same time. And moving out, and finding my own place. And it was and doing the trial at the same time. It was very, very, very tough. And accepting any of that was super hard. I would never have been able to do it without therapy. But I think talking about it relentlessly for me was really, really helpful. I'm a talker, and it's therapeutic to me. I understand that some people have a hard time being super vulnerable, but for me, it's just really good, and has served me well. And so yeah, I think the acceptance was just saying it over and over and over again. And there are also some physical things that you can do after limb loss that help you accept it. I touch the end of my leg all the time, and that teaches your subconscious. I'm obsessed with psychology in the brain, and it teaches your body where the end of your body is. So that's why kids grab their toes all the time and stretch out their legs. That teaches them later on how far they have to fall if they're going to fall when they learn how to walk. And so I was doing that all the time with the end of my leg so that I wouldn't get up and try and walk, and my muscle memory wouldn't try and walk and I would fall. And there are certain things that you can do to train your subconscious that's actually happening. And I'll say this and then I'll stop answering every question of yours for like 30-minute answers.
I love this, straight up.
I'm answering, each one is like 30 minutes.
This is great.
But one of the things that really helped me know that I had accepted was I went into my therapist's office one day and I said, you wouldn't believe this dream I had last night. And I'm not a big dreamer. And so he said, oh yeah, what was it? You've never told me about your dreams before. And I said, oh, I was sitting at this picnic table and a plane was coming and I couldn't get my prosthetic leg out from under the picnic table very fast because I couldn't bend my ankle because I don't have one. And I was trying to get away and I couldn't. And this was maybe 4 months into therapy. So 4 months since losing my leg. And he looked at me and he was like, Adrianne, what? And I told him the story again. And he said, you dreamed you were an amputee? And I was like, is that weird? And his look on his face was something I had never seen before. And we had a lot of sessions. And he said, I can't believe your subconscious already knows. And I said, what does that mean? Like, tell me, what does that mean? And he explained to me that, that there's like, I definitely know, like I'm not in denial and I'm beginning to accept the fact that my leg is gone. And I just thought that was really profound, and really helped me be like, okay, so this is real and my body and my mind are now in sync, that this is what's my life is.
That just made me feel some type of way. And I know it is going to for the audience as well, because when something like this happens, I imagine a lot of energy is allocated towards like figuring out if this is real. Like, am I going to wake up from this dream? But you didn't waste energy with that. You're more of using it to like, how do we move forward from here, right? Learn how to walk again, physically and mentally. Imagine when he said that to you, a lot of people probably struggle with that longer.
Oh, I would imagine. Yeah. And I mean, I'm competitive. I like to be first.
I can tell.
Like, sweet, I did it. Like, sweet, what's next? Like, I checked that box off. What do I have next? But what else can I be fast on? But it was super emotional for me when I heard him say that. But it's also hard because for a long time I wanted my leg back, and that was never gonna grow back. So it's really, it's really tough.
This is great stuff. Straight up riveting, very deep. And I'm in my feels right now. Someone said this to you, I believe, and it's so interesting because I think this is going to be universal for the audience, because it's not just about running, it's really for life. Something along the lines of, what's going to get you to the finish line is nothing compared to what got you to the start line. Yeah,
that's a profound one. I was standing at the start line of the 2016 Boston Marathon, and I had said in an interview with Anderson Cooper that I would one day run the Boston Marathon, and my dad's was like waving his arms in the background and being like, don't do that. Like, you don't know how to run and you used to forge notes in high school. Like, why on earth would you say that? And I had already been feeling so much love from the Boston Strong movement and kind of, this big moment in the history of the US and all the way outside of the US. And people had Boston Strong flags everywhere. And I said, I really want to run it. And there I was standing at the start line of the 2016 Boston Marathon, and I was severely undertrained. I didn't know what I was doing. And I was having a full-fledged panic attack. And my friend looked at me and said, Adrianne, what will get you to the finish line is nothing compared to what got you to the start. And it was so profound because he was right. Like it had taken me so long to learn how to walk and learn how to dance and learn how to sort of jog run. And I was not fast at the time. And learn how to do all of these things and learn how to live again and learn how to be single again and learn how to, find a new career and do all of these things. Like 26.2, that's nothing. Like, I can do this. And I think so often, you're right, it's not just running. So often in life, we think I have this whole thing ahead of me. Like, I still have to do this whole thing. And we forget how much it took to have us even get to that start line, you know?
Yep.
We forget so much of all the things that have happened before. So I try and remind myself of that often. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very profound for
Yeah.
sure.
And you learn this with life perspective, right? Like definitely not apples to apples, but I was training for the Chicago Marathon this past year, and I was at a speaking engagement, playing football with the boys on the beach. Never a good idea. I got injured, came home, and make a long story short, ended up getting an MRI. It was misdiagnosed as a sprained ligament. Turns out there was a tumor in my foot.
Oh my
Um,
gosh,
yeah, it was scary.
that is
Definitely,
scary.
I wasn't expecting that. Got surgery, came back benign, thank God.
Yeah.
And I really started diving into all this like quantum energy stuff because I couldn't run. I was on crutches, had a hole in my foot. And I started to build confidence and really just believe. And I was able to end up getting to the New York City start line to honor my pops, who's currently battling cancer, and raise money for American Cancer Society. And everyone kept asking me, like, do you have any predictions? Do you think you'll be able to finish? I ended up running a PR,
Nice.
3:39. Thank you. But my thought process going into that, after someone who's already ran a bunch of marathons, was I just want to get to the start line and just have a crack at this thing.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
it. Marry the
And you know
process,
what?
divorce the outcome.
I'm telling you, like that perspective of I just want to get to the start line, and then whatever happens after, like I'm just excited to be here.
That's
Like
it.
as someone who's chased perfectionism for so long, standing in front of all those people with those numbers, like for so long, and just would never even show up to anything.
Yeah.
Even on the Zoom with chip nails, like it never, like ever,
You
like
were
I would
great.
never. And uh it feels really good to just be like, I'm just excited to be here. If I don't come in first or second or third, like I'm just excited to be here. Yes, I'm competitive, and yes, I'm going to work really hard and do my best, but I'm just really happy to be here. And those are the days when magic can happen.
Yeah.
Like that's the mindset that really creates the magic. It's when you're super paranoid and everything has to go perfect that you create those expectations, create real disappointment later. And that is in running, and whether it's a 5K or a marathon or anything, that's when disappointment happens.
So true. Something I've really worked on and learned over the past year and a half is surrender and flow. Marry the process, divorce the outcome. And it takes away all the pressure, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not focused on the outcome. You're just grateful to be in the moment. That's kind of when the magic happens.
Yeah, it really is. And, you know, I remember dancing again for the very first time, and I was very lucky to be able to do that in a TED Talk.
Hell yeah. And for the audience, if you haven't seen the TED Talk, go check it out. It has tens of millions of views. It's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I was shocked. I looked at it the other day. It's like 16.4 million views or something crazy.
And rightfully so.
And I was standing behind the curtain waiting to go out, and in ballroom dancing, you always dance with a partner. And my dance partner looked at me, and this was in January after the April of losing my leg. And I was all dolled up. I had my ostrich feathers again, my bedazzled, you know, short dress, and my spray tan and my perfect nails and all this stuff. And I start sobbing, you know, 5 seconds before I'm supposed to go out. And my partner looks at me and he said, Adrianne, you're fine. You're going to be great. You're going to be perfect. Like, you got this. Don't worry. We've rehearsed. You won't mess up. And I just looked at him and I was like, fuck if I mess up. I'm just happy to be here. Like, I'm just so happy to be here. And that had never happened in dance. I was chasing that, like, air quote, perfect
I've been there
for so long. And so, yeah, it feels really good. A quote that Shalane has said many times is over prepare and then go with the flow. You know, train really hard and then you go with what race day brings.
That's it.
Yeah.
I notice a lot of gratitude with you. I imagine you cultivated that through life experience, as did I. And it's such a better frequency to be in, to be grateful even for some of the little moments.
Yeah, it really is. Part of my gratitude is learning how to walk again. You know, it's something that I talk about often. I wish with every ounce of my being that we all remembered what it was like to learn how to walk for the first time. I'm not talking walking after an injury, even though I've had to do that too. That's a big deal. But to put an entirely new body part you've never used at the top of stairs, and like, if you really look at your feet when you're going downstairs, like, you are falling, you're putting your foot in the edge and then you're putting your body weight over it and you're falling forward. Like, that is super scary. And I remember using that leg to put it down in a Boston blizzard for the first time and not be able to tell if it's ice or soft snow or like a curb, or being able to be fast enough to jaywalk again for the first time. Like that gratitude when you're like, I remember the first time I ever passed someone on a sidewalk because I was faster, and I was like, heck yeah, I passed this person. Like I was so excited. And just being
I
able
love
to
the
walk, like
competitiveness.
it
Yeah.
was just so awesome. It's no wonder toddlers have like these big, like enormous grins on their face. They're like, look at me go. Like
So true.
I saw this kid taking his first steps in a park, and I just start sobbing. I'm just like, I totally know how you feel, dude. Like that's the most amazing, it's the most incredible experience. And I understand that like we don't have memories of diapers, so I guess we won't remember it, but
so true.
I wish we did, because it's pretty, I wish everyone could experience that because it's pretty damn good. And so
100%.
yes, that is where that gratitude comes from. Like to be able, for so long, I could not just get up and go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And that's such a basic human need that we all have. And I always bring up bathroom because it's universal.
Yep.
And so, yes, running a marathon, yes, dancing on the TED stage, and for, all these amazing experiences that I've had. I don't want to downplay that, but it always comes back to learning how to walk.
Yeah.
Again.
Beautifully said. This is awesome. Straight up. Only negative I got going on is we don't have 10 hours to chat.
I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, we'll get you back
My
on.
long answers.
There's so much more to dive into and to digest. And I'm so excited for my audience to start following you and all that good stuff. They're in for a treat. We'll land the plane with this. I've heard you talk about this before, and obviously you have a lot of energy. Anybody could see that, but the truth of the matter is you're not always positive. Mm-hmm. And I think this will be good for the audience to kind of take away from it. How do you personally combat that inner negative dialogue?
Yeah, so I'm not always positive and not always thinking like, oh, because I learned how to walk now every day is easy. Like I never want to come across as that. And I have really hard days, and I still battle the anger. And it's spring, it's soon to be summer, it's like mini skirt season. And as someone who had no problem showing off her legs before and all the short stuff, and it's tough still, it's tough to be the girl with a different leg. And I battle that a lot. There are a lot of body issues that come with being a ballroom dancer. And then there's a lot of body issues that come with being a former ballroom dancer who looks different now. I'm happy to be trading in those opinions of old dirty white men for opinions of races and coming in fourth in the Boston Marathon para division this past April. And happy to trade that in for like no makeup and no shower and sweating in public and all of that. But yeah, it's hard. And I definitely don't stay positive. I think what gets me through, it's definitely gratitude, but I think what gets me through truly is just accepting the fact that like, we actually don't have to get out of bed when we don't want to. Like, yes, sometimes you actually do have to show up to work, right? But like, I think there's this commonality of, well, I just stayed in bed for the day and like, that's so awful. But like, I was blown up by a terrorist. Like, yeah, I'm going to stay in bed all day. Like, that's really awful and really hard. And you don't have to go through what I've gone through to know that life is hard. We're in a global pandemic, and 2020, that's all I need to say about that. Like all of it is really hard, and job changes are hard, and things, are hard. And so I think the less we can shame ourselves and others, but especially ourselves for wanting to stay in bed or canceling plans and thinking that that's a bad thing, then that's where we want to be. We don't want to be shaming ourselves. There's a quote by Brene Brown that says, the thing we don't need in the midst of struggle is shame for being human. And it is so good. And I think about it all the time. Yeah, mic drop. I think about it all the time. What we don't need in the midst of struggle is shame for being human. So like having the ability to just be like, wow, my entire body and mind like definitely need to stay on this couch right now. And so I'm going to stay on the couch right now. And that's not a bad thing. Society's telling me it's a bad thing, right? That commercial right there is telling me I shouldn't stay on the couch, but like, F them, right? Like they don't, like they aren't going through what I'm going through. And my entire body needs to stay on this couch right now. And that's okay. So I think we don't need to shame ourselves in that. So I think what gets me through, to answer your question, is not trying. It's hard. It's easier said than done. Is to try not to shame myself for needing to take the time, and for being angry, and for questioning whether I want to buy the mini skirt, or, you know, like that. I feel like anyone would feel that way. Anyone would be struggling if they went through what I went through. So that should allow me to be able to struggle and be okay with that. So does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
I think we don't want to shame ourselves.
100%. And you know what? Like sometimes it's okay to just be okay.
Yeah, exactly. And it's totally okay. And we want to be able to say to ourselves, like, yeah, that was tough, and I didn't do anything that day, or maybe I just cried, or maybe I threw something across the room, or, you know, and you know, obviously if you're staying in bed for days and days, then maybe, you know, talk to somebody. But I think it's really important that we don't shame ourselves into that. And so I think that's what gets me through is being able to know myself deeply. And that comes with a lot of sitting around waiting for that leg. Like, you don't get a leg right away. You have to wait to heal and get your stitches out and get the swelling down and all these things. I just had nothing but time to sit around and think about it. And that allows you to just accept it in a way that's like, life will not be the same. And I'm going to have to do things very differently. And I'm going to be triggered by fireworks, and I'm going to be triggered by balloons popping at a kid's birthday. And that's going to make these things hard. But how I can be better at that, and how I can take care of my mental health, is by telling the birthday party beforehand, hey, please have balloons, please do all the things. But like, if you see me jump like crazy and then run to the bathroom, like, just let me be. And then I'll be back out when I'm ready. Yeah. And knowing that I need to hide out in a cabin during the 4th of July and not near fireworks. And so I think there are a lot of things that we can do to kind of handle things better. But yeah, I definitely have bad days for sure.
And I just want to say to you personally, like, your emotional honesty and your vulnerability is really, really special and powerful. And you don't sugarcoat anything. You're as real, raw, and authentic as anybody I've ever spoken to. And you keep it real. And like, spoiler alert for the world, like, life is full of challenges and adversity. Yeah. Some things we just can't control, but our attitude is something that we can work on. And I want to acknowledge you for that. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
I always want to make sure that I tell people. And so thanks for talking about the hard days, because I always want to make sure when you catch me on a good day, which is today, right? Like, sometimes I'm very aware that it can come across like every day is a good day. Because I had people coming into my hospital room that had been amputees for a long time, and they were all bubbly. And I was like, F that. I was like, I cannot deal. Like, this is so hard. Like, how could you not have bad days? And so I understand that. And I mentor a lot of young girls now in that process. And so I think it's important to let people know that you have bad days. Hell for sure.
Yeah. My favorite part about this conversation is it's just the beginning of the friendship.
Yes.
The podcast is blowing up. What's the best way for my audience to support you or follow you or contribute and check out what you got going on?
Yeah, I'm an Instagram addict. I told my therapist a long time ago, we have enough to work on. We don't need to worry about that addiction. So I'm on Instagram under my name. So it's at Adrianne Haslet. And I exist on Twitter. I'm on there sometimes, but not so much. I'm on LinkedIn, but I haven't updated it in a while. Excuse me. Yeah, Instagram.
Okay. What's the best way that I personally can support you, Adrianne?
Oh gosh. One of the things that I fought really hard for this past year, sorry, wrong pipe. You have to edit that. One of the things I really fought for this past couple of years was to get a para division in the Boston Marathon for people like me who run in running blades. We didn't have one, and there still isn't one in the Paralympics, and I'm working on that. So I think showing an interest and paying attention to new para athletes that are competing in the Boston Athletic Association races, because there aren't other races. There are no other world marathon major races or 5Ks or 10Ks or anything outside of Boston that support people who look like me competing. They think we can't do it. So even the Paralympics thinks we can't run further than 200 meters. So it's really, really tough. And I think for people to support people like me and what I need is for people to be excited about the para division and to pay attention to the athletes and look at their stories. My story is unique, but it's not any more unique than the next one. So I think it's really important to pay attention to how amazing these athletes are and how inspiring they are by, really pushing their limits of achievement. And it's awesome to see. And, I think one of the things to teach the kids also is that we're actually the largest minority. People with disabilities are actually the largest minority in this country, but we don't realize that because we say things like we're inclusive, like a lot of society says things like we're inclusive of all race and gender, which, don't get me wrong, that is crucial and so important, but you absolutely leave out the largest minority by not adding and ability. So I think what people can do is in their workplaces and in their conversations, say things like, when someone says we're inclusive of all race and gender, say, hey, let's add ability to that. And that really makes sure that people are being seen.
Yeah. Consider it done. I'll do everything that I can, including my audience, to spread the message. I've had on the show Paralympic gold medalists and stuff like that. And
yeah, I've heard it's incredible interviews, and I'm a huge fan of the show. So it's wonderful to be here.
Thank you. And like I said, it's just the beginning of the friendship. I could do this all day. Adrianne, I want you to know you're the definition of grit, perspective, and heart. From taking your life experiences to spreading positivity, light, and deep truths. You're a true gladiator, visionary, role model, and beacon of hope for anybody coming up today with big goals and aspirations. I could personally guarantee your best is yet to come. Keep on spreading your wings and leaving your mark on this world. So much love and respect to you. Thank you so much for stopping by and dropping these priceless nuggets today.
Thank you so much, Craig. Thank you for having me. And it's wonderful to talk to you. I'm looking forward to the next time already.
Just the beginning.
Yes, absolutely. Just the beginning.
That was too much fun.
That was too much fun. It flew by.
Yeah, it did.
I know, it flew by.
Conversation.
Absolutely. I tend to give long answers. I'm a talker, so I always have to.
We have similar personality types, and I laugh when I know how competitive you are because I'm a similar way. Even just little things, but what else can I be first in? Or like when you're on the street walking and you pass somebody, so I get it. And
I'm like, haha, past you. It's all rude. It's like an old lady. I'm like, haha, past you. I don't say it out loud, but in my head, I do. Not all the time, but when I was first learning.
I know there was so much more we could talk about, but we'll get you back on for a sequel, even with the accident at the car.
I love that. Yeah, I know. We didn't. There's so much to cover. I've been through a lot.
Yeah, I know you have. What's on the agenda this weekend? Anything good?
I'm going to run a little 5K tomorrow. I'm just like getting the cobwebs out of the legs. They're so tired still from the marathon.
I'm sure.
And so I'm just going to run in it just to see, like, I'll push myself a little harder if it's a 5K because competition, right? I'm not trying to win it or get some PR or whatever. I just want to, it'll just be fun. Yeah. And I'm not even telling anyone I'm doing it. I'm just going to go do it because I don't want any pressure. And yeah, that's, what else am I doing? There's some TED events that are happening again. And so I haven't seen my TED family in a long time. And so there's some TED events Sunday night and Monday. So that'll be fun.
I love it.
Yeah.
Crush the 5K. I know that you will.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anything I could do to support, I'm here, and I'd love to build a friendship.
Thank you. Absolutely. I would too. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Have a good weekend, and I'll keep you posted when the episode's going to drop and so forth.
Awesome. Thank you, Craig. I really, really appreciate it. It's been so fun. Thanks for making it easy and fun.
Absolutely. Likewise. Have a good weekend.
You're a killer interviewer. You don't need me to say that, but you are. Really.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Adrianne.
Truly. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Have a good weekend.
Bye, you too.
Bye-bye.